Happy Monday to everyone. I hope that those of you in the U.S. are enjoying this President's Day. Some of you I know had to work and some of you are just enjoying the day. But in either case, I'm glad that you decided to take some time out of your schedule to join in Entropia's monthly professional development webinars. When you start thinking about President's Day and leadership, what better way to spend this President's Day than to learn, for some of you, refresh for others, or even sharpen on some of your leadership skills. Before we get started into the heart of the presentation, just want to quickly remind you what these monthly professional development webinars are all about. First of all, they're complimentary and open to anyone who signs up and registers. I believe that professional development is a very important part of our careers, and anytime we can have seminars or webinars or conferences to attend and enhance and enrich those skills, it's very important. Some people ask, well, 30 minutes is kind of short for a webinar, but a lot of the comments and feedback that I get from people is, oh, I don't have time to do this, I don't have time to go for a course. But who doesn't have 30 minutes in their day that they could take time out, sit at their desk, their iPads, or even their Android phones, and listen to a webinar on a professional development topic? But it is important to remember that because it is 30 minutes, these are condensed versions of workshops or even coaching offerings that we provide at Entropia. So if you find something that interests you or that you like, please contact us to schedule a full-length program delivery. You can visit us on our website, entropiaconsulting.com, on the Contact Us button, or you can simply give us a call at the number on the screen. So during our brief 30 minutes today, I'd like to go over a few things. First of all, talking about transferable leadership skills. What's the value of the transferable skill? Then for the heart or the focus of the presentation, it will be on 3 critical transferable leadership skills that I've found throughout my career in coaching, as well as my own leadership experiences that have been very successful and beneficial for me. And then I'll list throughout the presentation just some opportunities for you to demonstrate or transfer that leadership throughout your career. I do want this to be an interactive session, so please feel free to type in a question. All of you are on mute right now, but if you do have a question, please feel free to type in the question, and at the end of the session, I've allotted time for us to have a little discussion or answer some of the questions. So as we start out, I'd like to talk about transferable skills, because this is another area that we focus on at Entropia. A lot of people think that they aren't able to transition from one area to the other because they don't have the skills, they don't have the experience. But when you really think about it, there are a lot of skills that you've developed over the course of your life, not just your career, but over the course of your personal and professional lives that you've acquired, that you're capable of moving or conveying from one place to the other. I have a moving truck here, but if you think about this in terms of you moving from one house to another or moving from one city to another city, there's certain things that you pack up and take with you. So why not do that for your skill sets as well? There's an exhaustive list of transferable skills, and that's another topic or things that we can probably discuss at another webinar. But some of the more common transferable skills are project management, presentation skills, writing, editing, planning, event planning. But what about leadership skills? Have you ever thought about how could you possibly transfer leadership skills? Now, granted, most people think that leaders are born and not necessarily made. But I beg to differ on just a slight point from the leadership perspective. We may not all be destined to be a leader of a nation, but we all have the ability to lead and display leadership. Because by its very definition, leadership simply means to provide guidance on a way, especially going in advance. So let's think about it for a second. How many of you played Follow the Leader when you were a kid? I'm sure every one of you have played that game at some point in time. Simon Says, Follow the Leader. Those are things that required leadership skills, but you probably never thought about it in that particular vein. We all have the capability to be and display leadership, even if we aren't in our quote-unquote formal leadership roles. But there's another definition that I have particularly used over my career in leadership. It's not just about providing guidance to someone, but it's really creating a way for people to contribute to making something extraordinary happen. And that's the core and heart of what leadership is for me. You are providing the guidance, but you're creating ways. So as we think about that, as we think about the leadership, as we think about the areas of leadership that each of us can develop the skills in, I'd first like to talk about leadership levels. Because again, you may not be in a formal leadership role, but first and foremost, you have to be able to lead yourself. And in terms of leading yourself, maybe you're a new hire. Maybe this is your first job. Maybe this is your first day on as a member of a professional organization or a member of any type of organization. Perhaps you've been working for a while and you're an individual contributor. That's fine. You've not moved into the management ranks, management in terms of having direct reports, but you still have to manage yourself and making sure that you are contributing to your role or to your organization. The next level is leading a team. So you've mastered the level of leading yourself, and now you've elevated to the next level of leading teams. So perhaps you're a manager, perhaps you are a supervisor, perhaps you are leading or chairing a committee in your professional organization. You still have become a leader of some sorts. And then you have the ultimate leading level where you're leading an organization. So whether you're the CEO or the president, perhaps you're an entrepreneur and you're a principal, all of these levels are levels of leadership that each of us will experience at some point in time. And at any given point in time, we are particularly functioning in one of these levels. For some of us, we will be simply leading ourselves throughout our career. For others who have the desire to move up and lead teams or even organizations, there are valuable lessons that can be learned from leadership skills. And there's even value in the transferable leadership skills. I make the differentiation because some skills are transferable, which all of us can have, and others are more charismatic or a part of the leader's character, which that is what people refer to when they say leaders are born or they're just natural born leader. It's things that are in their character. But what we're talking about today are those transferable leadership skills that can be developed. So first of all, it's a soft skill. That's the true value of the transferable leadership skills. It's not something that you've necessarily learned in school or your experience on the job. It's a softer skill that can be used in any environment. So if you're making a transition from being a laboratory technician to a school teacher, some of the same skills or soft skills in leadership that you've learned in being your lab, you can transfer those into the classroom with your students. The other value for these transferable leadership skills is that it really provides a foundation to support your further growth and development. And finally, and probably most importantly, when you talk about transferable leadership skills, once you have mastered, developed, and even practiced on these skills, these are the things that will distinguish and differentiate you for future career opportunities. So it's very important that you start to understand what these transferable leadership skills are and how you can practice them and develop them and even master them throughout the rest of your career. As I said, the whole focus and core for this particular webinar is going to be on 3 critical transferable leadership skills that I found helpful throughout my career and as my role in leading. Just to give you a little bit of a background on me, I spent several years in industry, and I own my own consulting firm. But throughout the course of this, I held several leadership positions in various technical and civic organizations, and I was even the national president of a large technical organization from 2003 to 2005. And so much of what I've learned from my leadership and what I share with my clients through seminars, webinars, or even coaching is really based upon those learned experiences. The first thing that I'd like to share and talk about, we're going to explore listening as a leadership skill. We'll talk about leveraging, and we'll also talk about linking. Those 3 things, we'll spend the next 10 minutes or so talking about listening as a leadership skill, leveraging as a leadership skill, and linking as a leadership skill. So let's start off with listening. By definition, listening means to hear something with thoughtful attention. Now, when you consider that 75% of our time is engaged in some type of communicative situation, listening becomes very important. It's not just about hearing. It's a process. It's an active process. Listening means that you do hear what the person is saying, but it also means that you're looking. It means that you're taking advantage of those nonverbal clues, those nonverbal motions that people make. Even though they may be saying something with their mouth, you're able to see their visual motions, and you'll know. It's also helpful when you're in the communication process and listening as a leader for that person to know that they have your attention. Multitasking is one thing, but when you're actually able to listen, see, and hear what that person is saying, they respect you more as a leader. And I realize that all of us are busy. All of us have things that we want to do. All of us have things that we are, we have to do, we have to get done. But as a leader, when you master the skill of listening, listening by hearing, listening by looking, it really makes a difference to those who you are leading. So about 30% of you were looking when you saw the sign. But it's also something to really think about. Do people see this type of sign with you when they're coming to talk to you as a leader? Does it seem as though they have the sign that says, warning, I'm not really listening, I'm not attentive, I'm not there for you? It's really important that, because people can pick up on those people that are listening to them and not just hearing what they say. So when you think about transferable leadership skills and listening, give people a chance to express the thought behind their ideas. And what I mean by that is every conversation doesn't necessarily require a solution. When you become listeners and better listeners, you don't assume that you know what that person is going to say. And even if you do know, or even if you do think you know, listen anyway. Because what's most important about listening is that you're intentional about learning something from that interaction or that conversation. And that's something that all of us can start to practice on. Whenever you're in a conversation or an interaction, after you leave, reflect on it and think about, what did you learn? Not necessarily what you said, but what did you learn? When you're leading self, leading team, or leading an organization, you can demonstrate your listening skills by leading yourself, by acting upon any feedback that you receive. You can demonstrate your listening skills if you're leading a team by incorporating ideas for new ways of doing things. Your way is not the only way. And when people feel as though that you're listening to them, and that's followed up by the action of actually implementing some of the ideas, it makes you a better leader. When you're leading an organization, you can demonstrate your listening skills by adapting to the external stimuli. Now, I was talking a bit about listening to people, but once you are elevated to the level of leading an organization, you're not only listening to people, but you're also listening to the environment. You're listening to your competitors. You're listening to those people and organizations or events that are influencing the organization that you're leading and adapting accordingly. Next, we'll talk about leveraging. Leveraging meaning utilizing your time, your knowledge, and your resources to create those win-win situations. You know, it's one thing, those do-it-yourself projects are really great, but you have to remember that no man is an island. And the true value in leveraging is utilizing the strengths of others. It'll free up time for you to do more value-added activities. There's nothing new under the sun. It's already been done. So why not maximize those lessons learned for your benefit? And also invest time to train others to do what you do. I think it's Stephen Covey has often mentioned in the 7 Habits that people give an excuse for not having the time to train others. But what you'll find out is when you do invest that time in training others, you're learning a valuable skill and you're also allowing someone else to grow and leverage, and it does become more of a win-win situation. But just remember, it's very difficult to leverage what you don't know or understand. So make sure that you've sharpened your expertise, your knowledge. Make sure you take an inventory of the things that you have. How often is it that you go back to review old notes or emails or resources to see what you do have that could benefit someone else that you're working with, or even benefit yourself as you're starting to lead yourself or leveraging your knowledge for opportunities? When leading self, you can demonstrate your leveraging skills by contributing to discussions. You know something that perhaps someone else doesn't know. Maybe you've learned something from reading an article. Maybe you've learned something from just knowing someone else or being in a particular environment. Contribute to the discussions and leverage. Learn to leverage the knowledge. If you're leading a team, you can demonstrate your leveraging skills by delegating tasks. You're leveraging the skills and strengths of your team, of your committee members, to really have a quality product or to get a really good job done. And if you are leading your organization, you can definitely demonstrate your leveraging skills with succession planning. You're leveraging the talent within your organization to take you from good to great. And lastly, one of the key critical skills is linking. Linking is an active process of connecting people and ideas. Pretty simple concept, huh? Linking is the first part in building your network. It's not the only part, but it's the first part. And it's really important to remember that being linked is different than necessarily being networked. Because network is functioning. You can have lots of connections, but if those connections aren't actually actively doing something to connect your ideas or people, then it's just that, a connection. I'd also have to warn you of having too many links or excessive links that aren't functional. Because if you have too many, just think about the old necklaces that we used to wear. Too many links, too many chains, they begin to get tangled and they actually lose and reduce that functionality. But one of the key core things on linking is that it helps you to be current and it helps you to remain relevant. So it keeps you up to date with what's going on with people, places, or things. But it also helps you maintain your relevance. So when you think about transferable leadership skills and linking, just remember that connections are essential for success in today's fast-paced world. It's no longer just domestic competing. We're a global workforce now, and we have to interact with people all across the globe, all across the land. So make sure that you are establishing those linkages that will allow you to be competitive. The more you link, the more it helps build your experience and your confidence. I want you to think about that for a second. How can linking build experience and confidence? Probably one of the first things that comes to mind nowadays when you think about linking are all of the social media outlets or social media and social networking sites. That's really become the norm now for networking or linking in or connecting. But I really have to caution you that personal calls and face-to-face meetings, nothing can replace those in terms of establishing the linkages and the networks. Because most times you'll find that on the social networking sites, it's just that. It's about quantity. But as a leader, and as you are learning to develop those leadership skills, you realize that it's more about quality linkages than quantity linkages. So if you're leading self, how can you demonstrate the linking skills? You can connect common interests. It used to be the case that there was 6 degrees of separation, but nowadays it's probably, with the internet, it's probably only 2 or 3. But in either case, you can serve as a leader by linking people together that have common interests. How often do you do that now? Do you know people that are looking for a particular job or are looking for a particular skill set, whether it's work-related or personal-related? Can you serve as that link? Think about it. I think if you go back in your mind, you will see that you have the potential to have that leadership skill right now or even today, before the end of the day. Let's see how many people you can link. If you're leading a team, how can you demonstrate your linking skills? It's by establishing collaborations or synergies. You know what your team is good at. You know what your team needs. As you have linked on a self level or individual level, you're now able to bring together others and form collaborations for the greater good of the organization. If you're leading an organization, you can demonstrate your linking skills by hosting forums or mixers. I know at some workplaces they have time set aside in the evenings or just popcorn breaks where they allow their employees across to just come together and talk or chat and discuss ideas. That's linking. If you are leading an organization, at your conferences or even at your meetings, set aside time to have mixers. Even those people who you may see on a day-to-day basis, day in and day out, there's still value in linking and connecting with them and learning something new about them. Never underestimate the power of linking. If you've not created a LinkedIn profile, if you've just kind of been scared of the social media aspect, I would encourage you to at least fill out a profile and on a weekly basis. Some people don't have the time to do it on a daily basis, but at least on a weekly basis, start to develop those linkages and connections so that you can build a stronger network as a leader. So, what's the take home from today's webinar? We have about 5 more minutes, and again, if you have a question, please feel free to type in your question and I can answer those as we go along. But the take home from today is simple. All of us may not be leaders, but all of us can have leadership skills. And those leadership skills can be transferred and taken with us from job to job, position to position. They can be developed regardless of your level or position in your organization. And again, if you've not noticed, one of the things that I found that will help people remember and just kind of keep it fresh in their mind is if you keep them short and simple. So the 3 critical skills that I talked about today, I could have easily said communication, influence, collaboration. But I want you to be able to remember that leaders listen, leaders leverage, and leaders link. I'd like to thank you for joining in on today's webinar. Next month's seminar, or webinar, excuse me, will be on another professional development topic. I hope that you will be able to join us. At the end of the webinar, you'll get a survey, and please feel free to include topics of interest that you may be interested in hearing on another monthly seminar. And again, if you have a question, we have a few more minutes. Any questions on listening, leveraging, or linking, please send them in and we can spend a couple of seconds talking about those. If not, please feel free to sign off now. Thank you and look forward to seeing you or hearing from you next month.